That house was meant for Anna. You don't need it, Hannah. We always thought Anna knew how to take better care of our parents than you. That message hit me like a shock, leaving me breathless. I felt my throat tighten, unable to say a word. The house worth $400,000, the house my entire family had cherished and dreamed of for years, was no longer mine. I had never thought it would be mine, but I had been confident that at least I had the right to be involved in the decision. Now, everything had changed without any explanation. The house was not just four walls with a roof. It was where all the memories of my family resided. It was where I witnessed moments of happiness, as well as arguments and tears. It was where I had sacrificed countless years to contribute, to build, to help, and yet, now, it belonged to Anna. My younger sister, who had always been adored and pampered by our parents, had it all without ever having to fight or struggle for it. I couldn't believe what I had just read. It can't be. I whispered, trying to suppress the anger, disappointment, and pain. I struggled to regain my composure, but the words in the message kept replaying in my head, tearing apart every memory. How could this happen? How could my family do this to me? Why was Anna prioritized like this? I had dedicated my entire youth to the family, without complaints, without asking for recognition. And now, all those efforts seemed meaningless. I had done everything, but now I stood outside, looking at the house I once thought was mine, now belonging to someone else. That feeling was indescribable, like a deep wound in my heart. From a young age, I always felt like the daughter who had to give way. I can't remember exactly when, but I had gotten used to the feeling of always standing behind Anna, my younger sister, in every look and every bit of attention from our parents. They loved Anna unconditionally, while I was the child who had to take care of herself. Whenever I needed attention, whenever I needed encouragement, I was met with silence. Everything, from delicious meals to expensive gifts, was always given to Anna. I clearly remember the time when my father bought a new bicycle for Anna. "My daughter, this is a special gift for you, because you deserve it." My father smiled, his eyes shining when looking at Anna. Meanwhile, I stood beside them, silently staring at the bicycle, unable to speak. That gift was something I had dreamed of for years, but in the end, it wasn't mine. "You don't need it, Hannah," my mother said as I quietly looked at the bike. "You're independent, you can walk." I couldn't say anything, only bow my head and swallow the sorrow, wondering why I was always left behind. I didn't want anyone to pity me, but the feeling of being cast aside was always there, a coldness that clung to me every time I saw the way my parents' eyes lit up when they looked at Anna. No matter how capable I was, I could never occupy that special place in their hearts. All the love was directed toward Anna, and I was the outsider, always having to fend for myself. Every time I achieved something, whether it was a scholarship or an international job I had always dreamed of, I only received empty compliments, as if my parents didn't truly care. "You're so good, Hannah," my mother would say, but her voice never held pride or joy. "But you're not Anna. You don't need gifts or attention." Those words were like a sharp knife cutting deep into my heart. "You have a scholarship. You're working internationally. You have a good job." I would tell myself every time I looked into the mirror. But why, in my parent eyes, did none of that seem to matter? I tried my hardest to prove myself, to show them that I too deserved love and recognition. But my efforts were like a fleeting breeze, never enough to change their indifference. I wondered if there was anything I could do to make my parents see me, even just once. But the answer was always silence. My achievements, no matter how proud they made me, still couldn't erase the feeling of being an outsider in my own family. Every time I saw Anna being pampered by my parents, I felt more invisible. All the compliments, all the care, all the love were reserved for her. I could only silently watch, hoping that one day they would understand and recognize me. But even when I achieved great things, I still couldn't feel their pride in me, only the empty words of praise that were not enough to soothe the pain in my heart. And then I realized, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much effort I put in, I still couldn't change this. It seemed that my parents' recognition was too far out of reach for me. When I found out that my parents had transferred the house to Anna without informing me, my heart shattered right there. It felt like a punch to the chest, an indescribable, gut-wrenching pain. The $400,000 house, the home that I had envisioned as mine, now belonged to Anna, and I hadn't even known about it until I heard it from a family friend. Truly, I couldn't understand it. How could they do this to me? How could I be pushed aside as if I didn't exist in this life? Those questions kept swirling in my mind, with no answer in sight. That house was meant for Anna. You don't need it. Hannah. I repeated those words in my mind, each word feeling like a dagger digging deeper into my heart. We've always believed Anna knows how to take better care of our parents than you. My mother's voice in the message echoed back, sounding cold and indifferent. Each of those words was like a fresh wound, one that had just begun to heal and was ripped open again. All of my life, all the years I sacrificed, now meant nothing. But instead of exploding, I remained silent. I didn't react immediately, didn't cry out, didn't shout. The feeling of despair, the pain so deep I couldn't voice it, made me stand there, holding my phone, my eyes blurring from the tears that hadn't yet fallen. The feeling of betrayal from the very people I loved the most, from my own parents, was too much to bear. But I didn't allow myself to be weak. I had to stay clear-headed. I turned to a lawyer, not because I wanted to fight, but because I needed to know the truth. Madam, the house has been fully transferred. It is no longer in your possession, the lawyer said, his voice lacking sympathy, but I could still feel the pain in every word. I didn't say anything, just nodded. All I could do was quietly leave the office holding the signed legal documents, filled with helplessness. In the days that followed, I lived in a state of silence, with no anger or fury. I just felt empty. The world around me continued, but for me, everything had changed. All my efforts, all my sacrifices seemed meaningless. I had spent so many years trying to prove myself, but no one saw it, no one recognized me. And now, I knew that the house, the thing I had always believed was mine, now belonged to Anna, my pampered younger sister. I couldn't do anything, couldn't say anything. All I could do was swallow it down. Then I received the news that Anna couldn't afford to pay the debts and the bank was about to repossess the house. A part of me, as her older sister, wanted to help, wanted to save her. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that if I continued helping, I would be dragged back into that cycle, where I would always have to be behind, where I would never be able to stand up for myself. I couldn't live like that anymore. One afternoon, as I sat silently in the familiar room, holding my phone tightly, I made a decision. I would not help anymore. That house was no longer mine, and I would let the bank take it. If recognition from my family has to be bought with sacrifice, then I don't need it, I said to myself, a sentence I never thought I would have to say. But it was the truth, and I had chosen not to look back. I didn't need that recognition if it meant sacrificing my happiness and freedom. When I told my parents about my decision, my mother cried. "You can't do this, Hannah. You're the older sister. You have to help your younger sister." My mother sobbed, her voice filled with anguish. But I didn't change my mind. I looked at her, not with anger, not with hatred, but with determination in my heart. Mom, love is not endless sacrifice. I've given so much, but I can't keep living for other people's expectations. For the first time in my life, I felt strong, not because I wasn't in pain, but because I dared to face that pain and choose freedom for myself. This decision was not easy, but it was a release. Sometimes, you have to let go of what isn't yours, what causes you to lose yourself. And I knew, even though this decision might hurt my family, it was the right step I could take to protect myself. When my parents found out, their reaction was truly unimaginable. My mother nearly collapsed, her hands trembling as she gripped the chair, her eyes wide as if she couldn't believe what was happening. "You can't do this, Hannah. You can't abandon your family like this," she cried, her voice full of agony as if I had taken away all of her hopes. Each sob from my mother was like a knife to my heart, but I couldn't allow myself to fall at her feet in that moment. I had done so all my life, but today was the day I had to change. Anna stood in a corner of the room, her arms crossed, her eyes looking at me as if I were a complete stranger. She didn't speak right away, but I could feel the anger boiling inside her. Suddenly, she shouted, "You're so cold, Hannah. This is your family. This is your sister." The words of reproach from Anna felt like sharp stones, hitting straight into my heart. Her eyes were red, full of hatred and disappointment. What did I feel in that moment? Pain, but not anger, rather, a deep exhaustion, as if I had been enduring for far too long. I looked into their eyes, my mother crying, Anna angry, but I didn't feel any anger in myself. I only felt determination rising from within, a feeling as if I had just found a part of myself I had lost long ago. Love is not one-sided sacrifice, I said, my voice strangely calm. I wasn't in a hurry, there was no urgency, just a strange sense of tranquility. But in those words, there was something stronger than all the suffering I had endured. I have given too much. Everything I've done has never been enough to be seen, and I can't keep living in a shadow that will never be acknowledged. I've chosen happiness, not burden. At that moment, my mother looked up, her eyes full of tears. Hannah, are you really going to leave us? We're family. We need you. My mother seemed to be falling apart, but I couldn't turn back. The sense of responsibility that had kept me immersed in pain, that I had never been able to live for myself, now had to change. I couldn't live in that endless sacrifice anymore. I had lived my whole life for others, and now I realized, if I don't live for myself, who will live for me? Anna looked at me, her expression no longer full of anger, but deep disappointment. I knew my words had cut into her self-esteem, but I couldn't stop. I can't live in sacrifice forever. I love my family, but I can't sacrifice myself anymore. I have to let go in order to live authentically. I stood firm, not backing down, not wavering. The whole room seemed to quiet down, leaving just me and my parents in the heavy silence. My mother didn't say anything else, only choked on a sob before lowering her head. Anna remained standing, her gaze never leaving me, as if waiting for me to show weakness. But I couldn't let them pull me back in again. I was too tired of lives I didn't choose. I turned and walked away, not needing to say another word. The only sound was my footsteps on the hard tiles, the sound echoing throughout the room, ringing in my heart. This was the first time I walked away without feeling guilty, without the fear of loss. I had decided to live for myself, to live a life not of endless sacrifice for others, but a choice to rediscover who I truly am. As I walked out the door, no one called my name, no one tried to stop me. I felt lighter than I ever had. After deciding to leave home, I found a new city, a place where there were no traces of my family, no heavy memories, and no invisible expectations my parents had placed on me. As I stepped into this new life, I felt the freedom in every breath, in every step I took. Everything around me seemed lighter. I was no longer influenced by anyone, no longer worrying about pleasing others. I had found a space where I could be myself. The small apartment I rented was in a quiet street, not too busy, but just enough to feel comfortable. I didn't need luxury. All I needed was a small corner to grow freely. At night, the warm yellow light from my desk lamp was my only companion, and I sat there, thinking about what I wanted to do. I had decided to open a soft skills training class for young women because I knew that these women, just like me in the past, were searching for confidence and self-worth. Every lesson, I didn't just teach the young girls communication skills, leadership, or time management, but I also shared my own story with them. I wanted them to know that they didn't have to live in anyone's shadow. They didn't have to sacrifice themselves to please others. And I also taught them that sometimes, in order to be true to ourselves, we have to step away from toxic relationships. We have to let go of things that no longer belong to us. We always have our own value, I said during one of the classes, looking into the hopeful eyes of the young women. Don't let anyone, even family, make you feel invisible. I saw the nods of understanding, the eyes that found solace in my words. It was in those moments that I realized I wasn't alone, that I had done the right thing, no matter how difficult the decision had been. My life was different now. I no longer lived for my parents' expectations, no longer carried responsibilities that weren't mine. I no longer stood in Anna's shadow, nor lived by things I didn't choose. I was free, and in that freedom, I had found myself again. I no longer felt lost, no longer felt abandoned. I knew that, no matter how hard it had been, I had done the right thing. As time went on, my parents began to change. Though there were still times I felt hurt, they no longer pressured or forced me. Instead, they started listening to me more. They realized that I couldn't keep living for them, that I needed my own life and to be respected as an adult. My mother, for the first time in years, said to me seriously, "I'm sorry, Hannah. I understand that you need to live for yourself, not because of my expectations." Her apology was like a warm stream, soothing the wounds in my heart. I knew that our relationship had changed. It was no longer filled with reproaches, no longer with meaningless sacrifices. It was a new relationship, one built on true respect and love. Anna also began to change. Although there was still a hint of jealousy when she saw me taking charge of my own life, she started learning how to be independent. She no longer relied on me or our parents. Every time I met her, I could see the maturity in the way she thought and acted. "Sister, I really admire you," Anna said during one of our meetings. That was the first time she had ever said that to me, and I felt the sincerity in her words. I didn't need her to apologize or acknowledge her mistakes. I just needed to know that she had grown, that she had understood the value of independence. Now, we no longer burden each other. I no longer carry responsibilities that aren't mine, and Anna is no longer someone I have to worry about endlessly. We've become a true family, not because of blood ties or dependence, but because of the love and respect we give each other. My whole family has changed, and I feel that I too have changed a great deal. I have found myself again. I have rediscovered my faith in life, and most importantly, I have learned how to love myself. Have you ever let go to find peace for yourself? Do you think recognition from family is worth sacrificing your freedom? Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe that your self-worth doesn't need anyone's approval.